Welcome to the Weaving Magic podcast,
where we discuss the different ways to weave magic throughout your daily life.
We are your hosts, Alyssa and
Tara Webb,
and we are thrilled to guide you in this magical journey of exploration and ritual.
Hey Magic Weaver, your host Alyssa here again. If you have not listened to the episode before this, definitely go check it out. This episode is a part 2. We recorded this episode together, but it was so juicy and so good it ended up being over an hour long, so we split it up into 2 separate episodes. So this again is part 2. So if you haven't listened to part 1, go give it a listen. It came out last week.
So, numerology. If you look at the beautiful numbers, I don't have 0 on here, but I'm just going to take a hazard on 0 because to me 0 equals kind of like nothing and yet everything. I feel like 0 is where everything begins to grow because you can't go to 9 without having 0, right? Like it's kind of the growth number in a sense. The lack thereof, but also, it also reminds me of like as above, so below. It's kind of what I think of with 0. Number 1 is beginning. That's all I have.
That's it for number 1?
Just beginning. Yeah, so if you're seeing a lot of 111s, like maybe that's something new is starting, or you're starting something, a new cycle for your life. But you can also look at it as like either seeing 111, or you can add the numbers together, and that's 3. So it's really dependent on like how you want to look at it. That's where numerology comes in with your names and your birth dates and all of that kind of stuff. And those certain numbers are supposed to play huge roles in your life based on like you add all of your numbers up for your birth date. And so if it's like 13, if that ends up being the number, then you add 3 and 1, and that's 4. And so 13 has its own number in some ways, but also 4 has its own number. And so that's a huge, deep practice that people study to actually know more about numerology and how it can play into your life.
I feel like numerology for me, and maybe we should have somebody on the podcast in the future, but very much like astrology feels overwhelming at times until I have somebody like lay it down and break it down for me. Like Krista Lynn did an amazing job with astrology, but numerology is one of those that I get lost really quickly. And I love numbers. I still get lost sometimes. And I wonder, this is total side note, as you're talking about 0 and 1, I wonder if there's a connection to the Fool's Journey that's in tarot.
Yes, I think there is.
Well, because I think the Fool is the 0, and then the first card, or is the Fool the number 1? I'm not sure.
Let me see if I have my tarot book.
I have my tarot book. What number is the Fool? I should know that.
Yeah, the Fool is 0.
Is 0. Yeah, and the Magician is 1.
Because the Fool being like...
And we don't...
I'll see the Fool's being like someone who's not foolish, but who doesn't have enough knowledge. So they could make foolish mistakes. Yes.
Yeah.
Naive.
It's the naive beginning of your journey. With naivety?
That, yeah, so I was trying to pronounce that and you said something. I was like, my brain's trying to...
Yeah, it's that beginning of the journey where you don't have those past experiences, right, to pull from to make the educated decisions. It's literally just going in and diving for it. Seeing what happens and letting it unfold.
You know, signs can also be through cards too. So that's like true. Multiple cards can come up, and that's why something I learned about tarot is like how you're supposed to really connect with your deck and find out like what cards in this deck represent me, because you can be represented in the deck. And so when that card comes up, even if you're pulling cards for other people, you'll know, hey, this card actually means a note for me as well within the deck. And so actually I'm going to tie the numbers that we're doing with the tarot, because mine also has at the bottom kind of what they're tied to. I'll get to that in a second. So like 1 being beginning, which is also the Magician. And the ruling planet apparently is Mercury for the magician, which would also technically be Odin. So that's like communication, and which is very important in the beginning of things.
Yes, communication is key in all aspects of life.
Yes. 2, think of it as like duality, black and white, left and right, the balance of the divine goddess and masculine, which would be divine feminine and masculine, which is also the high priestess. And that would be kind of like an Egyptian connection, like at least this is what mine has with it. Connects with the moon as well. So duality, which you also can see with the moon, like the rising and the falling, the sun and the moon, like the duality of life.
Balance.
Very much balance. 3 is the Trinity, but that also, if you look at it like not just the Trinity in like the Christ, looking at the Trinity in the Mother, Maiden, Crone. What else is Trinity? I feel like there's the 3 of something else. Aren't there other beliefs that have?
I'm sure there are more, but my brain is completely drawing a blank right now. I feel like you said Trinity, and my body hesitated and wanted to throw up a little because it made me think of.
Oh, also I think in Hinduism, the Trinity is the Shakti. No, what's the one that shifts? The 3 of them shift. If you have your Yogic Path deck, book, I can't find mine. I think it tells you what it is.
You continue talking, I'll grab mine.
Okay. So it's also life, death, and rebirth, which is, part of the Trinity as well. Part of the 3 and things. And also says child. And so that's like the very beginning of life. I have the Empress. That's the 3rd card in the tarot. Empress is usually drawn with ancient Greek symbols like a wreath. So it's usually connected to like Greek kind of things. Did you find it?
What number was that again?
3.
3. And I love 3s. Fascinating.
Nicolette, who was
into that.
Nicolette, who was on our podcast early on, has so many 3s. It's 3-3 or 3-3-3 that shows up in everything for her. Constantly she'll like check something and her word count is 333, or the amount of gigabytes that her book uploaded whenever she was selling it was like 33 something or something like that. So 3s are constantly showing up everywhere for her.
So what were you wanting me to look for in here again?
So there's something within Hinduism. It's like,
because I have spirituality as a section, but I don't see anything Dharma, Kriya, Karma, Atman, Buddhi, and Buddha.
It'd be in the goddess section, the deities, and it'd be with either Shakti or Kali Ma, and I think there's like a triad within them.
Okay. You guys are going on an adventure with us. I don't think it's Kali. What was the other one, Shakti?
Well, the male version is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, which would then be Shakti. I have to find out what the other ones would be. I'm searching.
Brahma's creation. Kali's destruction.
Well, we'll find that later and we'll put it in the show notes.
Yes.
Because
now we're to sit here and listen to our silence as we read.
Because we're very interested trying to figure it out. So number 4 is obviously the building blocks. Foundation, that kind of thing, where your strong suit is.
You say obviously. I have not dove into much numerology. I have no idea.
Well, if you think of 4 being like when you look at a block, it's 4 corners. And like a foundation of something is typically squared. It's very strong because you can square things and it builds out. And I think, I don't know why I said
Okay,
obviously, because
I
like
can
in
hop
my
on that
like
bandwagon.
in my brain it automatically connects 4 to like squares, even though squaring is
I
2.
can see that.
But that's getting deeper. Anyways,
Yeah.
4 is the emperor. Probably because they're so strict about things. Like, this is what it's going to be.
Rigid. Yeah.
Yes. Things have to be, the rules have to be this way. And so then you get into 5, which are the 5 elements. More flowy, like connecting with nature. And the 5 would be the Hierophant. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Which is like connection to emotional and spiritual and that kind of thing, which is the 5 elements.
5 elements, nature, reminding you of stillness, calmness, to be present, I think is another message with 5s that tend to be pretty common.
Especially when you have like, your 5 fingers and you can go through and count down stuff. Because I'm thinking of like, take 5 deep breaths. What are 4 things you touch? Like, it brings your body back into itself.
You have 5 senses, yeah.
6 being the occult, but also visual design and like underneath. And so it's kind of, I think, what's lying underneath something. It's not just what you would normally see. It means if you see one
between the lines,
kind of, it's like you see something, you're like, you should look underneath it. You should look, maybe it's like with
the surface.
Exactly. Like if you look at a physical, a tangible sign, here's a feather, but there's a meaning deeper than the feather, right? Like going even deeper into what it's trying to tell you.
Everything we're talking about right now, as far as science from the universe and going deeper and learning what it actually means.
And we discussed this on our last episode where we said, surprise, 6 isn't like evil, like we said, because it's the occult. It's where you tap into more of the mystical energies. And 666 is typically seen as a satanic number, but excuse me. But if you look at this, what Satan did, I'm using quotes, Lucifer did.
Quotes.
He actually brought knowledge to them. Knowledge that, what I think is so fascinating is that God said, do not eat of this tree of knowledge, and then punished them for doing that while not having the ability to understand that it was wrong because they didn't have the knowledge. They were just supposed to blindly obey. And so, Lucifer gave them this knowledge. Lucifer, you could say tempted, but also like opened the door for more possibility. There's a lot more that like you can go into about that kind of thing. But that's why one reason it's like 666. And then if you look at 666, that's 18, and that equals 9, which is, ahead. That's like the completion of something. So the occult, tapping into your spiritual.
And the 6 and the reverse, yeah.
Yes. It completes the pattern, because if you have like the 9 and the 6 right below, like there's a symbol for that, like that means something.
It makes me think of looking into the reflection of water. So you have what's above, and then you're seeing the reflection of, but of course the reflection that you see isn't what actually is under the water. Right?
Yes.
You have to actually look deeper, and that's where you get into the 6. Ooh.
Which is where the 7 goes deeper. The 6 is kind of like looking at that. You're beginning to dive into it. The 7 is where you go deeper into it. And 6,
so 6 is like, I see the reflection. 7 is, I'm going to look deeper now.
Because 6 would be, ooh, that's spicy. That's different. Like that's where you're going with that, because we just jumped from, think about a baby crawling. We're going from beginning. Everything's new. Everything's great. Even before that, like the nothingness essentially of 0. Everything's great and, wonderful. 2, we're going to duality. Oh, things aren't just black and white and things are this. And like you're seeing sudden changes and stuff. The Trinity, as in like, then you realize as a kid, well, there's death and there's life and things are shifting. But then you also have the foundation of blocks. Okay, well, everything's shifting. I have to grow my own foundation and figure out what my common belief is. Right. And then the next thing you begin to tap into is like the 5 elements, and you go deep within the 5 elements and to, well, the foundation's around, but what creates that foundation? What else is there? Oh, the occult. There's more. Fascinating. There's more that can be taught and learned from it. And then before I go into that, 6 is also the lovers. And, the lovers I feel like are very immature, at least for me.
Yeah,
There's
it's
like a
that
lot
love
of
at
passion.
first sight.
It's like the passion of like, yes, we're just going to go in for it. That sounds so fascinating. We're going to do it. Because that's kind of like when we have our first awakening, or when you're really excited about something, you're like, yeah, I know everything. Yes, I can do this, right?
Or your first love, right? When you dive in and you're like, yes, I know exactly what a successful relationship is going to be like, but I've never been in one. And I've only seen failed ones in my life, You're going in
You're
thinking,
gung-ho. You're ready to just go after it.
And the way that we're taught about, this is where deconstruction comes in, the love example, right? We are taught that romance is this big gestures and all these different things, when really it's all the little things, and it's completely different, especially for long lasting relationships. And that's for anything in our life. Like, we go in blind, and then we start to realize, oh, my perception of this is all wrong.
It definitely is. So then we get into 7, which is the mystic. And you think so much of like 7 being like the magical, beautiful, heavenly number, right? And in some ways it is, but because it's like magic itself. It's mystic, mystery, alchemist. That's where things are shifting. And that is the chariot in tarot. It's like going after things and really diving into your own journey, figuring things out for yourself, not taking somebody else's word for it. Because I could see 6 of like being
reins of your life. Yeah.
I can see 6 being like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. And like believing what people say. And 7's like, I'm going to figure out that myself. I like that, but let me do my own research. That's kind of what it feels like. 8 is infinity and abundant. And I don't know about you, 8 feels like spiders to me.
I'm shocked.
And there's like a web there. Like 8 feels just really web-like. Like it's just all connected.
Well, and they also have 8 legs.
What is your 8 tarot card? Because mine says strength, but I don't think that's usually a tarot card. Is it?
Strength is a tarot card.
Is it? I guess because temperance is one as well.
Yes.
See, I need to get more.
Strength.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Fascinating. So strength is number 8, which it does take strength to kind of tap into, like I said, abundant. It takes mental strength to like really believe that you are abundant, that there's so much out there.
It also takes a lot of strength to get to this part of your journey, right? You've gone through looking at the reflection, you've gone through diving in deeper and carving your own path, and now you're standing in your truth of who you are, and that takes strength. That's what I think of when I think of 8, and when I think of the strength card in particular. It's that moment of standing in your true authenticity with such ease and grace and pride. And the good sense of pride, not the...
I'm excited because as we're going...
is not the right word.
As we're going through, I'm realizing 9 is where we stop on my numbers. But what I want to do is continue past this and go into the rest of the major arcana and add the numbers together and see if they actually match up to the numerology of what it says.
Ooh, okay.
No. Okay, so
this is going to be a long one. Buckle up.
So, buckle up, Buttercup. 9 is completion, collective, moving forward. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But that's the Hermit. It's like, I'm done. Don't come see me.
Yep.
I've completed my journey at the moment. I want to just go inward is how I feel about it. It's like, no.
So I feel like the Hermit is more of, I know what I want and I'm creating my space. Mm-hmm. It's that this is my space. This is where I want to be. Will I go out on adventures and do things? Sure. But I'm always going to come back to this space, this home, or having that home within yourself, even.
Being very confident.
Comfy. Mm-hmm.
So the Wheel of Fortune
when
is
you're
10.
comfortable being alone.
Yeah.
That's hermit.
Mm-hmm. The Wheel of Fortune is 10. And that's like the cycle that cannot be stopped, i.e. 1 being the beginning, because 1 plus 0 is 1. So it's like the cycle can't be stopped. You're starting over again. But this time
we're always in a cycle.
This time on like a higher path, in the sense of like you have more knowledge around the thing you're doing because you've already gone through it again.
This is what reminds me, because I feel like when I first got into spirituality and magic and all of this, this level up concept never made sense to me. Like, why do I have to level up? Why do I have to keep leveling up? But when you start to see how you kind of go through death and rebirth, that makes more sense to me. As like old parts of you start to die, and then you have to relearn who you are without that part of you, and you just continue on that cycle.
It's not like checking off a list. It's like it just eventually happens kind of thing. You're going to level up as you go through life, hopefully, in the sense because you're learning your lessons. We hope to learn our lessons and to change. Number 11 is justice, which goes back to duality.
Because it adds to 2.
The balance of things. That makes total sense. And then 13, I'm like second guessing. No, 12. 12 equals 3, which is Trinity, life, death, rebirth, and that's the hanged man making the sacrifice. The cycle of life.
The death.
But not death yet, because because
there is a death card.
Because the death actually comes next in that, which would be 13, which would equal 4. The building blocks foundation. Death is a foundation. Death is a crucial part of the building blocks of life. So let's go back to
the hanged man and then come back to death. So let's differentiate those two.
Yeah,
hanged man.
The hanged man. Hanged man it says makes a sacrifice and does so willingly. He's calm. So that's when you kind of like understand this is a cycle that's like changing. Life, death, rebirth.
And you just accept it.
Yeah. I'm part of this cycle.
That's what mine says. True peace can only come from within. That's the hanged man, that inner zen of just, this is the process and I'm just riding the waves.
Understand that things come in. Yeah.
And death is releasing those things that are no longer serving you. It's purging.
Yes. Because that would be part of the elements. Everything dies. Like there's so much when I go to talk to my therapist. He is a therapist on like grief and death, because we have so many deaths in our life that are not physical. The first death typically a person experiences is the death of themselves, of who they thought they were at some point. Like that's a huge thing of like, at what age did you have a death of who you were? Like I had this perception of like what my family was and what I was supposed to be. And that changed at like 10. It's earlier for some. So that is very foundational. There's also death in like
of innocence.
Yes. Death of your own expectations of yourself, that kind of thing. So death is like everywhere. It's very, very foundational.
Why did you connect death to the elements? Because death adds to 4, right?
Yes. Did I say elements?
Which is foundation. Okay. You said elements earlier. I think you were starting to move on and then we went back. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh,
okay.
I don't know. 5 is elements, so but 14.
Death is 13.
Yes, which equals 4.
So death 4.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we're moving on to
14, which equals 5, which is the 5 elements, and that's temperance, which kind of makes sense.
The balance of the elements. That's
finding
the
harmony.
Way when you dive into this stuff, yeah.
Finding the harmony and everything. And that's why the reversed is lost balance and struggling to find harmony when you're not really connecting with the elements, connecting with like what's around you, with nature and stuff. Which then, of course, I thought this was fascinating, which is why I wanted to dive deeper, that 15 is the devil, which is 6 equals the occult.
Yeah.
Like that's fascinating to me. And let me double check something. Yes. This is also fascinating too. What is number 6? The lovers. The devil is the shadow side of the lovers.
It is.
I got chills.
The unhealthy habits, the toxicity that can form.
And the numbers actually equal the same, 6 and 15. So they're numerologically speaking, they actually combine. Fascinating. Okay. We are now on, that was 16, which is 7. So that's the tower. Everything's collapsing around you. Mystery. Alchemist. I mean, things have to be torn down before they can be turned into gold. They have to be broken down. And it's time to release it.
Important part of the process. We talked about that.
Mm-hmm. Which does connect. Then we have 17, which will equal 8. God, the numbers like back and forth just messes with my brain. I have to like think a second. 17, which equals 8, infinity in the star, has collapsed and represents hope and rebirth. So it's infinity. It's like the abundance that constantly comes, and things are, it's part of the cycle as well, but it's like the high end of the cycle.
Side. We had destruction, and now this is the
and it's like the spirit self. It's like when you die, and it's almost like you're looking at yourself and like, I'm about to go in again, is what it feels like. You know, things are about to start. Like when you're looking at creativity and you're about to dive in. 18 is 9, completion, which would be the moon. Lures things out of darkness, and the illusion of things.
Mine says the full moon brings out the weirdos.
Moving forward, collective. I mean, the moon is kind of, I feel like a lot of us connect with very easily.
I feel like and I also feel like the moon is this romantic mystery almost. Mm-hmm. What did the numbers add up to? What did the moon is?
9. The 9. Completion of things. Mm-hmm. Because it says it can be hard to tell reality from illusion. That's when you're beginning to notice the shift of things. Of the collective, of like that kind of stuff. And then the next being the sun, which is 19 equals 10, which equals 1. The super numerology can like be mind-blowing, and you're like adding the numbers up. And I mean, that's the beginning again. The sun is always rising. There's constant growth with the sun. The sun is what allows things to. Day. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And once again, we go to judgment, which is 20.
Which is 2.
Which is duality. So that's also 2 would be justice.
Right and wrong. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we have justice, the magician. Starts off with the magician, justice, and then judgment, which I think is its own cycle of life thing. And then 21 is 3, which is the world. And that's life, death, rebirth. The world is unity, completion. It is the end of a cycle. Like that's life, death, rebirth. And you're kind of like finishing the major arcana at that point. So we took you on a tour of numbers and tarot.
We probably should have done 2 episodes, but that's okay. We wanted to give you guys a good one.
I was thinking about cutting it in the middle, but it got really exciting. I got really excited. I hope y'all got excited as I did, because I was like, ooh, that's a fun like caveat to go through, because I didn't even think about it. You know, the things that kind of like pop up when you start diving into these more.
Mm-hmm. And the way things that just beautifully connect and how beautifully orchestrated things are, it's fascinating. So what's our challenge? Are we going to do a challenge this week?
I think it'd be fun to create your own meaning behind numbers.
Okay, so creating your own relationship with numbers. Let's do 1 through 9.
Yes.
Starting point.
Yes. So like whatever 1 means to you. And I am in our show notes.
When you see it. Or 0, let's do 0 through 9. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In our show notes, we'll have what those are so you can see them. But I would recommend like doing it first and then going back and like checking if you want to. And stay tuned for our next episode on, my brain had a pause.
A surprise. You'll find out later.
On signs, because I think it'd be fun to dive into, okay, how do we take that step? Like, how do we apply that to our
What
magic?
does it look like to actually
the
dive?
practicality of like, cool, we see this feather. What do we do with it? Really looking into like what that means for us. So your challenge is to look at the numbers and just see what they mean to you. Don't force it. Don't make it something that it shouldn't be. 1, immediately what 1 means. 2, immediately what comes to you. Nothing is wrong or right.
And if nothing comes up, that's okay too.
Mm-hmm. And you can sit with it.
All new territory. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just sit with it and like kind of let flows. Even playing with like the actual things in your hands. 2 rocks in your hands. There's 2. There's the weight of 2 of them. 9 in your lap or something like that. There's 9. What does this feel like to me besides really heavy? So that is all, Magic Weaver. Join us next week.
This concludes another episode of our Weaving Magic podcast.
We release 1 episode a week, so be sure to subscribe to catch the latest episode as soon as it releases. You can find us on Instagram at Weaving Magic Podcast. That's Weaving Magic, Magick Podcast.
We would also love it if you could leave us a review. If you do, make sure to email us your review so we can send you a thank you gift. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to find a way to weave magic into your daily life.